Soto and Chad here, and today we are introducing a new series that we want to try out. Best scene, worst scene in a movie. And the first movie we're looking at today is Pulp Fiction. Now, if
Hmm.
any of you guys know the two of us, Pulp Fiction is one of our favorite movies. Anyone that wanted to be a filmmaker in the 90s, this is always their top movie. But we're not here to talk about the movie as a whole. We're here to talk
Hmm.
about what we think is the best and the worst scene. So I'm going to go first, and I will tell you, choosing a best scene was hard because there's so many good scenes that I love that I've quoted. But at the end of the day, the opening scene with Tim Roth and Amanda Plummer is the best scene in my opinion in this movie because a little bit of bias. I'm a huge Tim Roth fan, one of my favorite actors of all time. I love everything
Hmm.
he's in, but the dialogue in this just gets the movie going. It sets the tone, and
Oh
then
my
even
god.
into the opening credits with that song, you're just pumped.
Oh.
You know the flow of this whole movie. Um, and I just every time you just get jazzed. You have to start off with the banger. This is probably one of the best opening scenes ever. But to me, this is also the best scene in Pulp Fiction. And if you
Yeah.
fucking pricks move, and I'll execute every motherfucking last one of you.
Oh my god, dude.
Holy fuck, man! So to me, there is a lot of good scenes, but that's the best scene because I think that set the tone for the rest of the film,
Oh.
and
Yeah.
it delivered. So, it sounds like you like that scene too. But out of curiosity, what do you think was the best scene in Pulp Fiction?
So yeah, that scene, just to kind of before moving on to scene, it's so hard to figure out, but to jump on what you were saying, that scene starts the movie and it starts a whole new like sort of era of like filmmaking, and obviously you knew Quentin Tarantino from Reservoir Dogs, but that is just. My wife sat down and watched this with me, and I've seen this movie a million times. And then she's watching this beginning, and then where you're engaged in the dialogue, and then it hits those credits, and it is like you said, you are off and running, and you're like, holy fucking shit, this movie
Yeah,
is going to be an experience.
I love that
But
scene.
for me, very hard to choose because I have a lot of them. But it's if I have to pick kind of my favorite scene, just in the context of everything that happens around it, it would have to be when Vincent Vega drops off Mia Wallace after the whole situation where he brings her back to life after the OD. I just thought that whole scene was just great, all the way from him just being like, "If it's okay with you, I'm going to go home and have a heart attack." That's one of my
Yep.
favorite lines because it's like he just goes to this traumatic experience, and then it's like, they were about something even worse was about to happen had that not happened with like her ODing. Like he was going to try to not sleep with her, which would have been a whole other thing. Instead, something much more acute like and worse happens. They go through this entire situation where they experience this trauma, and it just comes down to like a nice simple scene. It's set up in the very beginning in the diner. She tells him the tomato joke that
Hmm.
like ends the pilot, and then as she's walking away, there's this great close up of just John Travolta just blowing a kiss. And for me, that was a great ending to what was an awesome chapter in this movie. Which we won't get into like the structure of this movie, but that's one of my favorite parts about it. But that way to end that, just like kind of like how the movie started with your best scene, like that was a great ending to that chapter. It was fucking fantastic.
Agreed. And 90s Travolta was on point, and he was
Hmm.
obviously on point on this. And yes, that is a great scene. And we now change from the best scenes in Pulp Fiction
Mm.
to what we think is the worst scenes in Pulp Fiction.
Hmm.
And Soto, let's start with you. What do you feel is the worst scene in this movie?
By far for me is when Quentin Tarantino has his little like introduction where he's playing Jimmy after
Yep.
they're trying to get rid of Marvin's body, and he knows Jimmy at Tallulah Lake or whatever the fuck he says. The dialogue, the back and forth with Quentin Tarantino and Samuel L. Jackson is so forced and terrible. Quentin Tarantino, as much as I respect him as being honestly like one of the best directors of all time, he is not a good actor. I actually thought his performance in Little Nicky as the blind like reverend is better than this performance in this fucking movie because his lines are so forced. And I'm not even gonna say shit about him using like the N word or whatever. It's like that so freely, like whatever, like that doesn't bother me. Like, but just his like forced nature and his delivery of the dialogue of that whole scene was absolutely cringe and terrible. It gets better as like the rest of the story goes on in the Bonnie situation with like the wolf coming in and Harvey Keitel being introduced, like and Quentin Tarantino goes kind of in the background a little bit, but that scene in particular, because we're talking about just scenes,
Yeah.
that scene is every time it comes up, I don't look forward to it. I sit through it. I try to find the good things of it, and in the last 20, 30 years, I cannot find any redeeming value. It comes across as egotistical. It comes across as just disgusting, terrible, worst part of the movie by far.
And I agree with you. This is actually was my second choice, and this is hard because I had two scenes that there are certain characters in this film which felt out of place, and Jimmy in that scene really
Hmm.
felt out of place. Like it killed the flow of everything that happened before that. Luckily, Harvey Keitel comes in and kind of saves it, so it's not too long.
Yes,
But yeah, it was an issue, and yes, the racial slurs and everything like that. It just felt everything felt forced. It did not feel natural. The coffee talk. I agree with you. For my worst scene, I go to a character that does nothing for the fucking film. And there's a few characters I had problems with, but overall, the introduction of the Gimp is so fucking stupid. Now, no, and it's the whole Gimp scene because here's why. So the situation is fucked up between Butch and
yes,
Marcellus, and
sure is.
Marcellus is getting basically raped. And that is the fuck up situation where they can use to basically, I don't want to say form a friendship, but an understanding like, I'm going to let you live after what you did to me and go. But
Hmm.
right before all that, they're like, bring out the Gimp. Now, here's what happens the Gimp comes out of the box, which is like, what the fuck? And then he sits there, and then they chain him to watch Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis breaks free. He tries to scream, and then he gets punched out and is just dangling there. The Gimp does
Yeah,
nothing for this movie. I think it was supposed to be introduced again to add to the level of fucked upness as that rape
it
scene
did.
was.
Yeah.
But I'm
Hmm.
like, you only needed that scene. You didn't need the Gimp. It just felt like a waste of character, and it was just so stupid. It added nothing. If the Gimp wasn't there, nothing would change about that scene. Nothing would change about that film. And I get it. People like the randomness of it. I'm like, it didn't work for me. And to me, that is the worst scene. I hate characters that just feel like that do nothing to the plot. And as big as they made that introduction again, to me, that is the worst scene in Pulp Fiction. I don't know how
I
you felt
thought I
about it.
thought you would be like more like okay, like because when I talk to people about this movie and useless characters, people talk about Fabian the most, which is Bruce Willis's Butch's like girlfriend, which I'm sure you have some thoughts on. But like that to me, when I first watched this and watched this among my friends, like a lot of people were just like, "Oh my God, I hate the Fabian parts."
I 100% agree. But it's not. It's the hard part is we're looking at scenes, and as she
Yes,
is again, I don't know if it's the actress. It just nothing gelled well, but her forgetting the watch sets up everything.
it sure does.
So
Well,
there's a few
Christopher
things.
Walken, which was my second favorite
Oh,
scene,
that is
sets
that
up
was a
that
good
shit.
one. Yeah. So, well, you know what I mean. But she sets up the whole Bruce Willis. So, no, I agree with people that character
Hmm.
is annoying, and I just can't stand it. I don't. It was just very out of place. Julia Sweeney seemed very random. I loved her in Saturday Night Live, but just like, what are you doing here? I don't know if it was just a
Just
fate. I
because you are a character doesn't mean you have character. What he
I
said,
know
where he says to her,
I know he ghost wrote it's Pat, but still, I'm like, but
"Did he?
he did.
I
Look
did
that up.
not know that."
He did, and
Wow.
he's uncredited. Let me rephrase that. He was uncredited for that movie. So, but
Oh
I know
wow.
I agree. There are some uses, but to me, the Gimp because there was so much build up, and it started off like, what the fuck's going on, and it did nothing, and it was just stupid. It was looked like it was trying to get some shock value, and it did nothing because the rape scene was enough of a shock value, enough of a reason for Marcellus to let Bruce Willis go. Like, you saved my life. This is just more fucked up than what I'm dealing with you right now, and just go. You just leave California, you're gone. So yeah, to me, the Gimp is the worst character. It's the worst scene because that's it. He just gets punched up by Bruce Willis and dangles. That's it. So
Yeah, I kind of
it
just
was tough.
yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of just like whatever about the GIF. If for one aside, with that scene, I just think it is so fucking hilarious how that scene is set up at the beginning of the movie when like Samuel Jackson or Jules, it's like, Marcel's don't like to be fucked by anybody except Mrs. Wallace. And lo and behold, he gets fucked by somebody who is not Mrs. Wallace.
And he doesn't like it.
Does he
Uh,
look like a bitch?
Anyhow, those were our picks for the best scene and worst scenes in Pulp Fiction. Let us know what you thought the
Mhm.
best scene or the worst scene or both of it. And let us know what you thought of Pulp Fiction in the comments. Until next time, have a good one.
Zed's dead.